Good evening, and welcome to our daily devotional reading. For those who are only visiting our make-believe monastery, we are reading through the collected works of Plato, at least those dialogues that are commonly acknowledged as written by the man himself. I'm giving you and taking for myself a moment of silence. And once we've sunk into that place where the sacred is a little bit more that tangible. Let's listen to the words of Plato. Socrates. The same names then ought to be assigned to those who follow in the course of nature. Hermogenes. Yes. And what of those who follow out of the course of nature and are prodigies? For example, when a good and religious man has an irreligious son, or pious, impious are the words that's used. He ought to bear the name not of his father, but of the class to which he belongs, just as in the case which was before supposed a horse fouling a calf. Quite true. Then the irreligious, or impious, son of the religious, pious father should be called irreligious, impious. Certainly, Socrates. He should not be called Theophilus, beloved of God, or Mnestheus, mindful of God, or any of these names, if names are correctly given. His should have an opposite meaning. Certainly, Socrates. Again, Hermogenes, there is Orestes, the man of the mountains, who appears to be rightly called, whether chance gave the name, or perhaps some poet who meant to express the brutality and fierceness and mountain wildness of this hero's nature. That is very likely, Socrates. And his father's name is also according to nature. Clearly. Yes, for as his name, so also his nature. Agamemnon, admirable for remaining, is one who is patient and persevering in the accomplishment of his resolves, and by his virtues crowns them. And his continuance at Troy with all the vast army is a proof of that admirable endurance, 10 years, in him which is signified by the name Agamemnon. I also think that Atreus is rightly called, for his murder of Chrysippus and his exceeding cruelty to Thyestes are damaging and destructive to his reputation. The name is a little altered and disguised so as not to be intelligible to everyone, but to the etymologist there is no difficulty in seeing the meaning. For whether you think of him as Aceres the stubborn, or as Asterotos the fearless, or as Asteros the destructive one, the name is perfectly correct in every point of view. And I think that Pelops is also named appropriately, for, as the name implies, he is rightly called Pelops, who sees what is near only. Ota Pelas Oron. Hermogenes. How so? Socrates. Because, according to the tradition, He had no forethought or foresight of all the evil which the murder of Cratylus, I should get the names right in this context, would entail upon his whole race in remote ages. He saw only what was at hand and immediate, or in other words, pelas, near, and his eagerness to win Hippodamia, by all means for his bride. Everyone would agree that the name of Tantalus is rightly given and in accordance with nature, if the traditions about him are true. Hermogenes. And what are the traditions? Socrates. Many terrible misfortunes are said to have happened to him in his life. Last of all came the utter ruin of his country, and after his death he had the stone suspended, Talateia, over his head in the world below. All this agrees wonderfully well with his name. You might imagine that some person who wanted to call him Talantatos, the most weighted down by misfortune, disguised the name by altering it into Tantalus, and into this form, by some accident of tradition, it has actually been transmuted. The name of Zeus, who is his alleged father, has also an excellent meaning, although hard to be understood, because really like a sentence, which is divided into two parts, for some call him Zena and use the one half, and others who use the other half call him Dia. The two together signify the nature of the god, and the business of a name, as we were saying, is to express the nature. For there is none who is more the author of life to us and to all than the Lord and King of all. Wherefore we are right in calling him Zena and Dia, which are one name, although divided, meaning the God through whom all creatures always have life. Dion zen ai pasi toi zozin uparche. There is an irreverence at first sight in calling him son of Kronos, who is a proverb for stupidity. And we might rather expect Zeus to be the child of a mighty intellect, which is the fact, for this is the meaning of his father's name. Kronos quasi koros, koreo to sweep, not in the sense of the youth, but signifying to chataron chai archetaron to nu, the pure and garnished mind. Aputu chorein. He, as we are informed by tradition, was begotten by Uranus, rightly so called Aputu oran ta anu, for looking upwards, which, as philosophers tell us, is the way to have a pure mind. And the name Uranus is therefore correct. If I could remember the genealogy of Hesiod, I would have gone on and tried more conclusions of the same sort on the remoter ancestors of the gods. Then I might have seen whether this wisdom, which has come to me all in an instant, I know not whence, will or will not hold good to the end. Hermogenes. You seem to me, Socrates, to be quite like a prophet, newly inspired, and to be uttering oracles. Socrates. Yes, Hermogenes, and I believe that I caught the inspiration from the great Euthyphro of the Prospalian dame, who gave me a long lecture which commenced at dawn. He talked and I listened, and his wisdom and enchanting ravishment has not only filled my ears, but taken possession of my soul. And today I shall let his superhuman power work and finish the investigation of names. That will be the way. But tomorrow, if you are so disposed, we will conjure him away and make a purgation of him. If we can only find some priest or wise man, so first he used the words, who is skilled in purification of this sort. With all my heart, For probably I am very curious to hear the rest of the inquiry about names. Socrates. Then let us proceed, and where would you have us begin, now that we have got a sort of outline of the inquiry? Are there any names which witness of themselves that they are not given arbitrarily, but have a natural fitness? The names of heroes and of men in general are apt to be deceptive, because they are often called after ancestors with those names, as we were saying. They may have no business, or they are the expression of the wish, like Eutychides, the son of good fortune, or Sosias, the savior, or Theophilus, the beloved of God, and others. But I think that we had better leave these, for there will be more chance of finding correctness in the names of immutable essences. There ought to have been more care taken about them when they were named, and perhaps there may have been some more than human power at work occasionally in giving them names. I think so, Socrates. Socrates. Ought we not to begin with the consideration of the gods, and show that they are rightly called gods? Yes, that will be well. My notion would be something of this sort. I suspect the sun and moon, earth, stars, and heaven, which are still the gods of many barbarians, were the only gods known to the aboriginal Greeks, seeing that they were always moving and running. From their running nature, they were called gods or runners, theos, theontas. And when men became acquainted with the other gods, they proceeded to apply the same name to them all. Do you think that likely? I think it very likely indeed. What shall follow the gods? Must not demons, says the translation, daimons, says the other, because probably of the confusion with Christianity's demons. Must not daimons and heroes and men come next? Diamonds! And what do you consider to be the meaning of this word? Tell me if my view is right. Let me hear. You know how Hesiod uses the word. Hermogenes, I do not. Socrates, do you not remember that he speaks of a golden race of men who came first? Hermogenes, yes, I do. Socrates, he says of them, but now that fate has closed over this race. They are holy diamonds upon, not diamonds, diamonds, upon the earth, beneficent averters of ills, guardians of mortal men. From his works and days. Hermogenes, what is the inference? Socrates, what is the inference? Why, I suppose that he means by the golden men, not literally, not men made of gold, but good and noble. And I am convinced of this because he further says that we are the iron race. Hermogenes, that is true. Socrates, and do you not suppose that good men of our own day would by him be said to be of golden race? Hermogenes, very likely. Socrates, and are not the good wise? Hermogenes, yes, they are wise. Socrates, and therefore I have the most entire conviction that he called them demons. For the irony in it, I'm going to keep this translation. Because they were daimones, knowing or wise. And in our older Attic dialect, the word itself occurs. Now he and the other poets say truly that when a good man dies, he has honor and a mighty portion among the dead, and becomes a demon, which is a name given to him signifying wisdom. And I say too, that every wise man who happens to be a good man is more than human, daimonion, both in life and death, and is rightly called a demon. Thus far, our scripture of the evening. Alex O'Connor just, or will, I'm not quite sure if he has posted it yet, has a conversation with an etymologist. And I know this because I am a seer, and I've seen it on Substack. I am tempted to let Euthyphro tempt me into also speak as one possessed. Yes, I shall. I've mentioned before that I've seen many synchronicities, and I've noticed someone else on Joe's Substack asking me about synchronicities, whether it's a coincidence or actual knowledge on my side. It was a coincidence. The reason why we see these things now is because so many people put content out there. The temptation, and I think it might be disastrous, is to think that because Alex posted something on etymology, just as I am reading Cratylus, which he didn't refer to, that there's some sort of connection between us. And you know what there is, because there's a connection between everyone. I'm a firm believer in the whole, the one, if you will, that everything and everyone is interconnected. And when these little synchronicities pop up, we should be careful not to connect it to the person. And if we do so, we would encourage parasocial bonding, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but we might miss the mark and focus on the parasocial bonding instead of becoming more and more aware of the interconnectedness of all. It was too tempting, I could not say that. That being said, the only other thing I wrote on was, as his name, so also his nature. And later Socrates also speaks of nature being reflected in a name. While we're being woo-woo, I guess we might as well go on. I would encourage you to look into the etymology of your own name if you haven't done so yet. My name derives from Elizabeth, which means bond with God. And it's funny, I suppose, because at a certain point you just have to start laughing at things if you don't want to respond negatively. Because try as I might, I cannot lose my enthusiasm. So there might be something in my name. Talking of Alex, I believe it comes from defender, because the Zander part, Alexander, is of mankind, of man. So I imagine the Alex part is just the defender part. I don't know many other... Well, I do know a couple of names meaning... I think Joseph means there's more to come. Because it's Jacob's son with Rachel, who struggled to have children. And then she was really happy with Joseph and called him this to encourage by magical words. You will get while I'm smiling when you watch Alex's podcast, I think, for more. And then Benjamin was born, beloved son. I have no more. So I will wish you a good night. I hope you sleep well tonight. And may the spirit of Sophia be with you.